Crackdown 3 was revealed way back in 2014, and since then has went through a bit of a development hell with multiple delays. To be fair, they were investing in a new technology with cloud computing, so I was never really surprised by these delays. But at the end of the day, was it really worth the wait? After all, you are put into a sandbox world where you are essentially a superhero that can jump over entire buildings, pick up a car to throw at people, and all kinds of other inhumanly impossible things. On paper, it all sounds like it would be a lot of fun. Having said that, it's a game that never takes itself too serious, but instead focuses on chaos, platforming, and flashy explosions to entice the player. The story is more of a side thing. On one side, I think Crackdown really shines as a platformer. When you first start the game, you are essentially stripped down of all of your powers, and after you choose your agent to play, which I think most will end up choosing Terry Crews's character, you must power yourself up with orbs. Lots and lots of orbs. This is by far the most addicting part of the game, as you have to traverse the city to collect orb after orb. It's at its absolute peak when it has you gliding building to building. They have 1,000 orbs scattered throughout the city, and every time you hear the orb sound effect, you're going to want to rush and find it. The more you find, the more powerful you get, especially with the way you jump. You will eventually be able to jump over entire buildings and have multiple thrust packs as well as multiple jumps. In a way, I think you can view this game as a collectathon, much like games like Banjo-Kazooie and Mario Odyssey. So if you like those types of games, you may want to give Crackdown 3 a try. The problem is, other collectathons do it better and more consistently. Moreover, Crackdown falters far too often with its other attributes to round out your complete gameplay experience. Similarly, I think there is a point you just get so powerful that collecting orbs is no longer essential, which really brings me to one of my main issues with this game. It is not a very challenging or skillful game. The way the mechanics work in Crackdown is that you have a lock-on aim, so you really aren't required to be mechanically sound in this game at all. And I've always hated this type of mechanic. It doesn't matter to me if this is in Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, or Crackdown. To me, I want to be able to get better at the game on my own and not have aim assist. Or, I'm sorry, this would be more like an aim bot. There is nothing that irks me in a game more than when they offer me little to no challenge, and when you strip me of this possibility by essentially adding aimbot, it significantly lowers my interest in the game. Offer me a challenge, but instead with Crackdown, it's like I'm just kind of going through the motions. That is to say, because you're so powerful and you get these absurdly OP weapons, you're just kind of blowing everybody and everything up. There was a point in the game that I just kind of started to ignore the enemies because it was like swatting at flies. And because I could jump so high and so far that the platforming becomes less and less interesting as time goes on. Now that isn't to say the game isn't fun, because that isn't true. I actually enjoyed this game much more than I thought I would. I have always known Crackdown to be that game that came with the Halo 3 beta back in 2007, so I didn't come in with high expectations, but left thinking this is a very fun and enjoyable game. It just seems that your progression kind of outpaces the interesting parts of the game, which is why that I increased its difficulty as time went on. Speaking of the pace, there really isn't much of a pace in this game. You're thrown into the world and you just complete the missions as you please. If you want to go straight into the most difficult fights, then you are able to do that from the very beginning. If you want to unlock the most powerful weapons in the game, you just need to find it in this city. To that end, there is a lot of unique and interesting weapons in Crackdown. This ranges from your common assault rifle to a black hole that will absorb everything around it, consuming people into a devastating vortex. You also have several kinds of grenades reminiscent of Halo games. Whether you want to freeze, burn, or even poison people, you can toss a grenade and marvel at your power. The problem again though, is that once you start finding explosive weapons, I'm not really sure why you would want to use any more traditional kinds, as you can just blow everything up. And maybe that's the point of this game. You just kind of plow through everything with brute force, almost as if your enemies don't have a fighting chance. On a more positive note, you are given several different mission types, including platforming, killing leaders, and even car races. There's no shortage on things to do as you go mission to mission, many of which are very fun. My favorite was the platforming time challenges, where you had to jump building to building to score the fastest time. This is by far some of the best moments in Crackdown 3, and I think as a pure platforming game, it certainly has its moments. In contrast, the car races are by far the worst component in the game. While you can say that Grand Theft Auto has fun driving mechanics, you cannot say that about Crackdown 3. I highly recommend you just stay on foot, as the platforming really is the best part of Crackdown 3. The driving just feels off, and every time I did the car races, I would grow increasingly frustrated with how bad it felt. One race in particular kind of reminded me of the old Shenmue forklift races, if you've ever played that game. It's almost as if when you turn, it doesn't want to turn immediately, at least with this particular vehicle. I also had several issues with the audio. Not only does the dialogue come in too quietly, my audio would come in and out on occasions, especially with some of the more intense battles. I'm not really sure what was going on here, and maybe it was with my surround sound system. I don't really know, but I at least thought it was worth mentioning. I know it sounds like that I've been killing this game, but the truth is I really did enjoy my time with Crackdown 3. I also know that Crackdown fans will say that many of the things that I have complained about is what makes Crackdown Crackdown. And well, that kind of is the problem. I never thought Crackdown was a great game. It wasn't a great game back in 2007, and it's certainly not a great game in 2019. If you are a Crackdown fan, I think you're going to love this game, as it is the best Crackdown in the franchise. If you're looking for a game with simple fun that is reminiscent of the PS360 era, you will probably like this game. Otherwise, I think it can be fun at times, but it is inconsistent with its highs and lows. It's not a game that will set the world on fire, but has plenty of enjoyment for those who like this type of game. It's not a bad game per se, just forgettable and completely average.